Eat Simple rule number 8 is actually one of the first stops we need to make when we talk about fat loss, because what we're talking about today is the state of your nervous system. And I believe strongly that nervous system state is one of the most critical factors for permanent weight loss that people forget to talk about. So let's talk about it. I think it starts by understanding that we live in this really chaotic, super overly busy, stressful modern human realm. But our brains and our DNA, the software that runs our whole body, is extremely ancient and is used to a more calm, quiet, generally simpler way of life with moments of stress. Like, we really are wired for pretty chill times with acute moments of stress and pressure. Unfortunately, we live it the other way around. We live our lives mostly in stress and pressure, and we drop into these acute moments, #self-care. We do a little meditation, we take a walk, we go to yoga class, we give ourselves a pedicure in the bubble bath or whatever. These are our little self-care moments, but we're barely tiptoeing down into a restorative, restful nervous system state. We spend no time in there at all. So our brain is perceiving the environment that we're in as being generally really problematic. Something's going on out there. And I always like to think of this in terms of, like, I'm the pilot of this meat suit. I'm the one steering it around in the world and determining what's happening in the world around me and sending inputs back into my body. Now, the inputs I'm sending back in could either be stress and worry, could be my food choices, could be my the way I move, the way I sleep, the way I play, the way I stress. Like, I bring in the inputs, and my body, which is like inside of me, my DNA, trusts me. Have I lost you? I'm talking about my DNA. But like, your DNA is the operating system here, right? So I think we do need to talk about it. Your body trusts what the signals you're sending it. So if we're constantly sending a signal to our body like life is hard and stressful and I have to fly around like a maniac, I never have time for myself, I'm always worried, I'm overthinking, I'm ruminating, I'm stressing, I'm under pressure, all the body knows is something is really wrong. And it does put us into a bit of a survival mode. That's the two halves of the nervous system, right? So we've got the fight or flight half of the autonomic nervous system. That's the sympathetic nervous system state. That's the fight or flight. Then we have the rest and digest, just because it rhymes. Rest and digest, the restful, restorative, as far as I'm concerned, normal baseline half of the autonomic nervous system, which is your parasympathetic state. I truly believe we're meant to be parasympathetic dominant with moments in the sympathetic state, but we have flipped the script very unfortunately, very problematically the other way around. It's not working for us. So, but also if we're just constantly in sympathetic nervous system state, fight or flight mode, our body has no idea why or what is causing this, only that the stressor is there. Now, I want to be really clear. What I'm not talking about here really is cortisol, but I do have to talk about cortisol. But why I'm dancing around the topic of cortisol is because the cortisol narrative currently right now, as I'm recording this, is insane. It's insane. People blaming high cortisol. I'm high cortisol, identifying as being high cortisol. Yeah, you're a stressed out modern human. Yeah, we all are. It's stupid. We got to dial this down to a dull roar. Can we? So, but to me, it's like, instead of blaming cortisol, which is simply a hormone that's responding to the stressy inputs that you're sending in, can you do something about those stressy inputs? Because cortisol is a perfectly fine, very healthy, normal hormone that's simply doing what hormones do, which is respond. It's responding to you. So cortisol's not the problem. It's like blaming the firefighters for being at the fire. You have to solve the stress of your life at the root. Now, I want to just mention that when I was in nutritionist school, we talked about the metabolic and health impacts of stress for like 5 minutes. We didn't go into it very deeply, let's say. What we were consistently told was, you need to help your clients manage their stress. Make sure your clients are managing their stress. Manage your stress. Manage your stress. Hey, manage your stress. All right, have a good day. Good luck with that. It's ridiculous. It's the most pointless platitude. So I do like to talk to my clients about how to help them manage their sort of stress from the perspective of, is there any part of your life that you could get a little more control over? So rather than managing stress, just say, where can I get a little more control? Because I think there's something really empowering about deciding into feeling more in control, more autonomous, more empowered in your life. So one of the things I really like to work on with my clients is, hey, could you stop stressing about your body so much? Because it's not a broken, defective thing. It's actually a pretty freaking perfect miracle. If you stop stressing about your body so damn much, that would take a little bit of the burden off your sympathetic nervous system. Something worth a try. And let's not blame cortisol for the fact that it's simply responding to the stresses that you're bringing in. One of the most chronic and common sources of stress I see with women is stressing about their body, stressing about their diet. This is especially true of my peer group, the Gen X and elder millennial woman who has been embroiled in thin, obsessed beauty culture and the dieting and fitness boom for her whole adult life. It has a lot of psychosocial programming around how she's supposed to look and show up in the world. Tinier is better, less is better. That programming is extremely deep in our minds, and we get clawed back into it a lot, and it's highly, highly stressful. It's a very stressful way of living your life. Okay, in the context of fat loss, though, why is this important? Well, I teach this to my clients when I talk to them about how fat loss works, right? I'm in the women's weight loss space, right? I'm a women's weight loss nutritionist, specifically working on my peer group, the women that have all this weird programming about food. So it's not just calories in, calories out, because we've got this crazy ass psychosocial programming about food. We have to deal with our relationship with food, how we think and feel about food, how we engage with food. There's a lot involved. It's not just how much of what you're eating. So when I teach my clients how fat loss actually works, and by the way, you'll notice I changed the narrative from weight loss to fat loss because you don't want weight loss, you want fat loss. Weight loss is nothing. Weight loss is meaningless. Getting on the scale and weighing less, who cares? That means nothing. By the way, if you're my age, you can't afford to get lighter on the scale because you're probably losing muscle and bone. Every year after your 30th birthday, you precipitously lose muscle and bone unless you're doing something to preserve it. So please do consume enough protein. Enough is fine. And it'd be good to do some strength training and some walking, just in case you didn't get the memo. Eat protein, lift weights, and take walks. I know, I just blew your mind. Wow, brand new information. Anyway, I teach my clients how fat loss works, and I'll say, here's the 3 factors required for fat loss. Number 1, we have to send safe signals to our brain and body. We have to start quietening a little bit. And this could be, could you create a nice evening wind down every night so you can get a good night's sleep? That's a great place to start. That's a great place to start. You already know sleep is good for health and weight loss. I talked about that a few lessons ago. You already know that. Do you know why? Well, first of all, sleep is a metabolic process in and of itself, but also consistently short or poor quality sleep is a massive source of stress on the body. The body perceives short or poor quality sleep as something being very terribly wrong in the environment. It doesn't know what's wrong in the environment. Your body has no idea what's going on outside of you. It trusts the signals you're sending. And if you're sending a freaked out sleep routine, the body perceives that as being a big problem. So that's a good place to start. Why don't you just create a nice evening wind down and just make restful evenings into a beautiful sleep part of your daily routine? That's a great place to start. It feels nice. It's pretty easy. You want to do it on some level. Most people that I speak to want to sleep better, right? That's a great place to start. Is there anything in your life, in your relationships, in your family, at work that you could get a little more control over? And I think about this like, is there a conversation you could have that you've been putting off that would maybe lessen the burden of something relational in your world? Something simple that's not going to stress you out to have the conversation. But like, I used to have a coworker that I really disliked. And I asked my boss if I could just move to a different desk. I'm like, can I move to that desk over there? I just think I'd be more productive. I was a writer and this coworker just annoyed me. Without throwing the coworker under the bus, I said, I think I'd be more productive if I could work at that workstation because it's a little less distracting. My boss was like, oh, no problem. And I solved that little stressor as a good example, right? I can take the bull by the horns. I don't have to be a big time go-getter. I can just do the bare minimum of taking the bull by the horns so that I feel a little bit more empowered and not like I'm having stressors put upon me that I'm powerless to. There's something really stress removing about feeling like you have a say in these relational aspects of your life. So something like that, right? I would love it if you could stop stressing the hell about your body and your diet. That is such a chronic source of stress for women. Worrying about how fat you think you are is making the body hang on to fat, right? Because here's the deal. I'll be really careful with my language because what I'm not talking about here, I'm not talking about starvation mode. So please delete that from your mind. But I want you to contemplate that the fat that's on your body is absolute gold. From a survival perspective, your body loves your body fat. Loves it. Doesn't really want to let go of it. Once it's there, the body's like, this is good. We have this. We want to keep this here because you never know when things are going to get weird. It's the ultimate survival fuel. And you're running ancient DNA, and your ancient DNA is wired for survival during hard times. Now, we don't really have hard times. We're not in danger of starving or dying of injuries and infections and all the infectious diseases and things that our ancient ancestors died of young. We don't have those struggles in our life, but we have now self-inflicted harms in great quantities in our modern life. They're not going to kill us outright, but we're still wired for this survival, like times are difficult, this is weird, And so the body considers fat its survival fuel, which it is. It's one of 3 fuels in the body that we have. We have fat, we have glucose, we have ketones. They're all awesome. Great fuels, all 3 of them. Glucose is your emergency fuel. Ketones are an emergency fuel. They're kind of quick burning fuels the body can tap into. Brain and muscle cell can use those fuels very quickly for getaway fuel, right? But fat is the sort of doing life, predominantly just functioning in the day-to-day as a human. That's our most valuable fuel. The body doesn't really want to get rid of it. I know you hate it. You hate your body fat. You want to get rid of it. On some level, body fat has the potential to become dangerous if it's inside the viscera of your body. So visceral fat, which is inside your body cavity, it runs the risk of permeating your organs. So you end up with a fatty liver, fatty pancreas, fatty heart. That's not healthy. Let's be clear. There's some ways where body fat is unhealthy. But truly, the subcutaneous pinchable fat that you don't like the look of in the mirror isn't unhealthy. It's perfectly benign. It's perfectly healthy, fine, stored fuel. You just don't like the way that looks, and you're allowed to not like it. Like, I want you to have full agency over how you want to look and feel in your body. And it's not wrong to want to look better. I don't begrudge you that. That's not a moral failing. But I just want you to understand that there's a little bit of a mismatch between your ancient DNA and your modern human perspective on how good or bad body fat is. So your body thinks it's amazing. You don't like it. You want to get rid of it. Your body doesn't really want to get rid of it. So right out the gate, a little bit of a discrepancy there. Now, if we consistently send in these unsafe signals, times are difficult, everything's hard, the body's going to kind of circle the wagons and be highly protective of that fat. It's just going to feel harder to lose the fat. And now here's where I think cortisol gets the blame. Cortisol gets the blame because we're stressed out. We know we are. We know cortisol is the stress hormone, and we know we can't lose weight. So we say, I can't lose fat because of cortisol. It's like, you can't lose weight because you're sending consistently high pressure, stressed out signals into your body, and your body's just kind of hoarding the fat, not really that willing to let go of it. Parenthetically, here's how cortisol can contribute to metabolic dysregulation if left unchecked, because it's not nothing. Stress triggers the release of cortisol, and the purpose of that is because if this stressor was acute and you're being chased by a bear, cortisol would have some metabolic functions it would need to do to help you get away from the bear, which would be, it would increase your visual acuity, your mental acuity. It would perfuse your extremities with blood so you could run away. Your muscles are very active, ready to run. It also will dump some sugar out of storage into your blood. That's the emergency fuel. That's the whole point of having 2,000 calories of sugar stored in your body. It's getaway fuel to run away from a bear. And cortisol facilitates the dumping of sugar into your blood so that you have that quick fuel to run away from the bear. The only problem is we're running away from bears every day of our life. Just constant metaphorical bear chases. So there's maybe a little constant trickle of sugar from storage into your blood. So you can be a keto AF, but if you're under chronic stress, you're still bathing your cells in sugar all day long, which is fine to a certain point, but it's not really meant to be a chronic expression. We do want to tap back into that sort of calm, quiet fat utilization mode. But if we're chronically stressed, we're kind of, in a manner of speaking, a little stuck in sugar burning mode. And this can actually render the cells mildly insulin resistant. There's tons of research to show this. I had a client who was type 1.5 diabetic. Hear me out. His pancreas had stopped creating insulin, which is type 1 diabetes, but he wasn't born like that. It happened as a consequence of an autoimmune disease. It affected his pancreas. His beta cells won't produce insulin, so he has to be on insulin. He's not quite type 1 because he wasn't born with it, but it's also not quite type 2 because it's not just the insulin resistance at the cell. So anyway, his endocrinologist was very adamant. I was really delighted about this, to suggest that stress is a major problem for a diabetic person because it can cause this sort of blood sugar dumping. And that's hard to manage when you're diabetic, right? If you're under stress, it's like you could be having wild blood sugar swings, especially if your pancreas isn't producing insulin. So he had to keep his stress under control. I was really, really delighted that the doctor said that. That was amazing. But that's true. There is a metabolic implication of chronically being under stress and that chronic cortisol secretion. But At the root of it is not problematic cortisol, it's problematic pressure and stress. And you've got to grab hold of that so that your body can just return back to feeling safe to use this absolute gold storage fuel of this body fat. Your body can store infinite fuel as fat. It's amazing if you think about it. Your body's not in a hurry to get rid of it because times could get hard. And as far as your body knows, times are hard. So sending safe signals into your brain and body is a crucial stop on the fat loss journey. In fact, for my purview, it's stop number one. Before anything else will work, are you making a move to send safe signals into your brain and body so that you can be more in the parasympathetic than the constantly sympathetic state? Again, we're up here in sympathetic fight or flight mode all the time with moments of parasympathetic where we calm down or take a little shavasana at the end of the yoga class. Like, it's ridiculous. Moments in time are spent in the parasympathetic state. It should be the other way around. We should actually be living our life pretty calmly with moments of stress. That's how the cortisol response is designed, right? The acute experience of running away from a bear, getting away from the bear and then moving on with your life, not bear chases all day long. We inflict a lot of chronic bear chases on ourselves. It's not working. Where can you just calm down? I know, calm down. That doesn't feel like actionable advice, but I don't know, maybe it is. Like, where am I just overly putting pressure on myself? And I go back to what I said earlier. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves because we don't look good enough and we're not enough. And that's honestly maybe the plight of being a woman, just feeling never enough, feeling like you're always kind of just behind the eight ball, never feeling satisfied, never feeling satiated, never feeling encouraged or inspired or trusted or celebrated or whatever. Like, that's a constant societal cultural pressure that we're under. Can you re-empower yourself somehow? Send safe signals into your brain and body is stop one on the continuum of behaviors and things that encourage fat loss. And then, by the way, just to close the loop, the next stop is the energy deficit. I should probably talk about that in a separate episode. Do we need an energy deficit? Is that a thing? Yeah. Yeah, obviously. Otherwise, there's no incentive for your body to tap into its stored fuel. But before the body will tap into stored fuel, it has to believe that it's safe to do so. So that's why sending safe signals to your brain and body is one of the eat simple rules. It's the final one. It's really important for fat loss. In fact, I speak to a lot of women who are very stressed out, very sort of spun up, and their energy is that way. And it's like, I think we need to start with your energy before we even address food. Can we deal with this nervous system state of yours? Because it's not going to work if you're chronically in this state of being. So stop one is send safe signals. Stop two is you have to have an energy deficit. Now, I have a lot of theories on energy deficits and ways to execute an energy deficit that doesn't feel brutal and it's actually sustainable. We're not going to talk about that today. That'll be a future episode. I'll make a note. And then the third piece, which we cannot overlook, is do we have good metabolic function? Are our cells really sensitive to insulin? Is that all working? Are we get good mitochondrial function in the cells so we can really get energy working? A lot of chronic dieting, which my clientele have persisted with for decades, can really affect the machinery of metabolism. Now, we go back to the very top of the eat simple rules. Break fast epically, answer hunger with a meal, prioritize protein. All of this really good, nourishing, abundant fuel is going to help with your metabolic function. So we're good. But don't forget, stop one on this continuum is, am I sending safe signals so that my body trusts that it's safe to let go of this absolutely beautiful stored fuel that it's got in it? Your stored body fat is a miracle. I know you don't like it. That's okay. But it's a real biological miracle that we can store this amazing, beautiful fuel on our body in infinite abundance. And if you do want to get it moving, you have to consistently tell your body that it's safe. I will also argue that eating to satiety, which I discussed at the very top of this 8 Simple Rules series, always answer hunger with a meal and eat to satiety, that is a very safe signal. That is a beautifully safe signal. That's an easy way to do it, I think. When your body cues up hunger, answer it all the way to satiety. That's going to send a signal into your body like, hey, you know what? I just noticed the fuel environment's changed. It's a lot more abundant now. It's pretty weird before. We were doing a lot of fasting, a lot of low carb, a lot of weird prepackaged fuelings. So truly, we kind of come full circle. Always answer hunger with a meal, which is eat simple rule number 1, feeds into eat simple rule number 8. Send safe signals to your body. We've now closed the loop. That's the safest signal that you can easily send is just feed yourself. Take basic care of yourself. I think about self-care. These self-care practices we use to try to quieten our nervous system is like bubble bath, pedicure, get a massage. Like, sure, you could also feed yourself. You could go to bed. It could be a lot cheaper and easier than endless spa days. This is the basics of self-care. Feed your damn self. Put yourself to bed. Manage the things in your life that are struggles that you have control over. Some of the struggles you don't have control over. We need to be very clear about that. That's why I was really bothered by my nutrition school telling me to tell my clients to manage their stress. It's like, have you seen what's happening in the world? It's extremely hard to manage stress right now. But there are some things you can manage. Could you feed yourself? Could you go to bed? Could you have a conversation that you need to have? What can you do? Be a badass, in control, empowered woman and do these things so that you can feel a little safer and more settled in your body. And then you'll lose fat. You can get out of your own way. Although you need the energy deficit and the metabolic machinery working. But the first factor is this nervous system state. It cannot be overstated. I will say this again. I don't believe you will lose weight, lose fat, as long as you're chronically, perpetually stressed out. It's not because of cortisol. It's because of just this general nervous system state that you're in is sending a bit of a scarce, weird signal back into the body that times are tough. And when times are tough, it's fuel hoarding mode, baby. There's no way your body's going to give up the goods if times are chronically weird and you're in chronic bear chase mode all day, every day of your life. I've given you some actionable ways to send safe signals to your body. This does not have to be a very complex practice of meditation and mindfulness. It can be simple. In fact, the simpler the better, because I think we can stress ourselves out about not meditating enough or not being mindful enough, right? Chill out, take it easy, relax. And you just might find that to be the secret to sustainable fat loss.